Topic 3, the getting to know you portion of the show. And we landed on that for you, we wanted to talk about wrestling, right?
Yep.
So tell me about wrestling, Cameron.
Wrestling.
And your love of wrestling.
So professional wrestling specifically.
Yes.
I'm not big into amateur or Greco-Roman wrestling as it's also known. It's too, I don't know, it's real, I guess. There's nothing dramatic or thematic about it.
The rope opera.
Yeah, the rope opera is definitely the best way to put it. The opera in between the ropes. Actually, it's less opera and more melodrama.
Yeah.
We've both done theater, so we both understand the principle of melodrama.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all wrestling is.
Yes.
However, it's also, at the same time, it takes a level of athletic skill that is the athletic skill level that it takes to be a professional wrestler at the top of the game, like at the top of the industry, is the same you'd expect from a gymnast, any kind of athlete.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's why they go through athletic training, because these people are doing things that, and honestly, in taking a move, so when they take a move wrong, it can do more damage than if they had just been given that move for real.
Yeah.
So somebody does a wrestling move on someone, them taking it incorrectly could lead to them being more injured than if the person had done it to them for real.
Yeah, we did at Stray Cat Theater, we did a show a few years back called The Elaborate Entrance of Chad Deity, and it was like a wrestling show, and about basically like backstage wrestling politics and this race relations and stuff told through the lens of wrestling. You would have loved it, I think.
For sure.
But we did, we had a local indie wrestling thing.
Was it Phoenix Pro Wrestling that
maybe,
did it?
I don't remember. They lent us their ring effectively, and one of the guys was basically our wrestling consultant and helped teach the actors some of the wrestling moves and stuff. And during Tech Week, the big wrestling move in the show, like the main character's big finisher was a power bomb.
Gosh.
And they did it, and the jobber role, who played 3 different wrestlers that got beaten each time, he ended up really messing up his back in that in Tech Week, and they basically had to they had to rework it, so they filmed the segment instead of having a lot of live wrestling in the show like we originally were supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
They turned it into filmed segments in the final week of the show, so that it wasn't doing it every week, even though he really wanted to still try and do it. And he after that first weekend, he was cleared to do it. It was well, we don't want something going wrong again and messing it up. So
no, a power bomb these are just the top 3 things that can happen when you do a power bomb incorrectly. You can break your neck, you can break your back, and you can break your hips. That's just breaking stuff, not talking about twisting, tearing, anything else. And honestly, it looks like it would be one of the easiest and safest moves to do.
Mm-hmm.
But it requires so much momentum from both parties.
Yeah.
And they have to work in tandem for it. And that's the thing. Wrestling is performance art. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to be out here saying it's a sport or it's you have to be incredibly athletic to do it. But at the same time, it takes a certain level of trust and choreography. There are wrestlers who actually don't choreograph at all. They call it, they say the terminology they use is they call it in the ring, which means they whisper code phrases to the other person so the person knows what they need to do to react to what the other person is going to do. Mm-hmm. And that takes years upon years upon years of training to do. And that's old school. Now most of the time they choreograph it, or they have a brief understanding of the choreography, especially for big shows and big spots. They call it big move. In a match, a spot is a moment where something really important about the momentum of the match happens. And everything about it is momentum. It's ebbs and flows.
Yeah, it's storytelling. It's you've got a beginning, a middle, and an end to a match.
And it's just it's so brilliant. There's just so much stuff about it. The thing about it is, when I was growing up, I thought it was real.
Yeah.
Like every kid does. But I thought it was real for much longer than I should have. to my, and because of that, when I found out it wasn't, like, it was totally, completely fake, I was hurt. Like, I'd be lying to say I wasn't hurt that this fantasy that I thought existed within reality wasn't real.
So that's the thing, that like it being fake, like we talked when I came in and did Knotty Gamers, we talked that I recently got into like what culture wrestling in their videos and stuff. And one of the points they bring up is like, yeah, wrestling's fake. So is Breaking Bad. So
like, is everything you love on television.
Any scripted thing is fake. It's just like it's not. There are fake things that are pretending to be real, like wrestling. But then there are fake things that are very clearly a scripted show. Yeah,
a big thing that a lot of people don't understand about it is wrestling is a television show, a fictional television show that is telling the story of a real athletic promotion.
Yeah.
So within this fictional universe that they are all pretending to be a part of, this is a real company that is an athletic organization, the same as the NFL or anything else. It's just a completely different quote-unquote sport.
Mm-hmm.
What you're watching is actors and stunt people performing this show for you, and they do it live. And it sets it apart from anything else that you could ever find on television. The only thing that comes close is UFC, and that's an actual combat sport.
Yeah.
And they're, ever since the beginning, the rivalry between Dana White and like Vince McMahon is ridiculous. The Twitter feud, or like the Twitter tirades Dana White goes on about the WWE and how it's fake and everything. It's like, Dana White, we all know. Get off your high horse.
So when did you get into wrestling? Let's take it back a little bit.
I was about 6 or 7.
And so, did you get into like WWF?
I got into WC. I got into WCW.
Okay.
So we're talking. This was
during the Monday Night Wars and stuff. Like that.
This is 1996, and this is the thing. Since I'm so into wrestling, I actually know around the time period that I started watching wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
And what's funny is when you're growing up and you look back at wrestling, you realize how short of a time frame things happened.
Yeah.
But at the time, it feels like they went on forever.
Right, because you're seeing basically one thing a week, maybe two, if you're in like a Raw and SmackDown era or something like that. Or what was the
Nitro and Thunder? So Thunder actually came before SmackDown. They did the two shows.
No. Most of the WWF things came from WCW things.
Because they pushed them. That's why the Attitude Era, also known as the Monday Night Wars, is considered the best time for wrestling. Kind of like this cool, like platinum age type thing, where because you had these two companies that were constantly competing with each other, you got the best out of them.
Oh yeah, I mean, like in the gaming sphere, like you have something like SquareSoft and Enix, and then once they merged, a lot of people, myself included, feel like the lack of competition there kind of neutered the games.
I'd agree with you on that. But what I will say is that when it comes to wrestling, so 1996 is when I got into wrestling. Because this is 1996 is when Sting became the Crow Sting from the Surfer Sting that he used to be.
Right.
And the first thing I ever saw was Sting come down from the rafters. And because I was walking up the stairs in our house, and my brother was watching wrestling. I didn't know it at the time, but my brother had been watching wrestling like his entire life. Like my brother met Hulk Hogan. My brother was a Hulk, like part of the Hulkamania, which is a weird thing to say now.
Yeah, there's a bit of added context now.
Yeah, well, I look at it this way. This all also came out around the same time as the stuff about Bill Cosby.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know what? At least like one of them is not as bad as the other.
Yeah.
But it's still bad.
Yeah.
But it's also, when you look at it, this is a man in his late 60s who grew up in the South.
Mm-hmm.
Of course he's going to use that language when he thinks that he's alone.
I mean, not of course. Like, you could also not use that language.
For sure, but like, is anybody really surprised that he used that language?
No, I mean, I'm not, but still,
it's not cool that he used that language for sure.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be an apologist about this.
Right.
I don't know how to feel about it because it's.
I mean, on that, like the fact that like the WWE network is basically like removing him left and right as much as they can from
they
like,
put it
their
back now.
history books. Oh, is he back now?
Yeah, he's back.
Okay.
They didn't announce that they put him back, but because they announced that they removed him from their Hall of Fame website and that he was no longer being considered part of the Hall of Fame. But then they subtly added him back. Okay. Now, granted, another member of the Hall of Fame is Jimmy Snuka, who at this point in time, the situation with his brain is so bad that he's basically like almost a walking vegetable. But he was also like possibly like he's looking at murder charges. So the WWE Hall of Fame also has like some really sketchy people.
Yeah, that's the sordid history of like wrestling and
it's interesting because
stuff.
Well, what's really cool about wrestling and what's also really horrifying about wrestling is 1 second. Sorry, I just need to take a sip of water. Is that it's carnies. Like as much as Vince McMahon wants to put everybody in suits and ties, as much as they spice it up and they dress it up, at the end of the day, this was a carny lifestyle up until the early 80s.
Yeah.
These people were the only reason why the WWF, at the time known as the WWF, was so respected is because they had their shows take place in Madison Square Garden. There's only a couple other promotions that were actually like considered classy. Mm-hmm. The rest were carnies, and before that, it was all carnies. Vince McMahon isn't descended from like a line of promoters. He's descended from a line of carnies and charlatans. Now he's a billionaire.
Yeah.
He is a brilliant, mad scientist of booking in wrestling. And booking in wrestling means like the person who's in charge of creative storytelling.
Right. He's, I mean, like for the last handful of years, it's been Stephanie is in charge of creative. They say she's in charge of creative, but at the end of the day, he's in every meeting. He's on the road. He's making every final decision. Yeah.
And what's funny is that every time people were like, oh, well, this development happened with this character. Was that like Stephanie or was that like somebody else? And what comes out from like rumors coming back from it are like, no, that was Vince. Like he still understands. He's such a master of his craft that even at his age, like nobody can touch him. Mm-hmm. The only person who was ever competitive with him enough was Dusty Rhodes. And Dusty Rhodes unfortunately passed away last year.
Yeah.
Very, very tragic. He has two sons that are wrestlers as well. Cody Rhodes, who's still active on the independent scene after leaving WWE, and then Dustin Rhodes, who is currently Goldust on WWE. One of the strangest characters that's ever existed in all of television.
Is he? I mean, it's not
he was a dude who used to.
That's not the Goldust that like was Goldust when I was growing up. Is it? Is it?
Oh yeah.
Still same guy. Oh okay.
Same guy.
Okay.
The androgynous.
Yeah, I remember that, and then I feel like that disappeared for years and years. I mean, especially because it's like the androgynous version of it from the Attitude Era definitely seems like it wouldn't play well in the PG era.
And it didn't. He left the company for a while and then came back later.
Okay.
But they rebooted the character to just be a dude who's crazy, wears like black and gold face paint.
Yeah,
and
like he came back into my...
He wears a full suit, like a full like spandex like leather suit, but it's not like sexual as it used to be.
Got it. Because I remember him coming back into like the limelight with his feud with Stephen Amell, like that they were building.
Oh no, that's not Goldust.
Well, oh, that's not that.
That was Stardust.
Okay.
So Stardust is Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes is the youngest son of Dusty Rhodes. He was originally just Cody Rhodes in WWE. And then they had him become a Goldust-like character called Stardust, and he did the rivalry with Stephen Amell.
Okay.
Basically, people would chant Cody, Cody, and that would make him like go insane, and he'd lose matches because of that. Because he mentally snapped. Got it. And he was a bad guy, but essentially, Cody Rhodes wanted to do something different. He tried pushing consistently to do something different. And they just wouldn't give him the room to do it, and so he left. He asked for his release, and now he's touring the independent scene, carrying it up, doing a great job out there.
Do you? So I mean, you still watch? Yeah.
Yes.
You still watch regularly. Do you only do WWE, or like are you doing like TNA's one of the other
I do
ones
not
now?
touch TNA. I do
Okay.
not touch TNA with a 10-foot pole. Even though they had Sting, I couldn't never get into it. I just never could. Which sucks because apparently there's been some really great stuff that's happened there over the years. But that was also when TNA was coming about. That was also when I was like done with wrestling. I was done with wrestling for about 13 years.
Okay.
15 years. I was done with wrestling for 15 years of my life. And so there's like a 15-year gap, and that's where TNA exists. That's when the rebooted WWE controlled version of ECW, which was definitely not as good, existed. That's also where a lot of like people have come and gone over the years that I'm not familiar. I'm familiar with them now, but when I started back up into wrestling, I had no idea who they were.
Yeah. So were you? I mean, so like I remember when I was still into wrestling and stuff. I remember the whole when the Monday Night Wars ended and WWF bought out WCW, that being a whole thing. Were you around for that?
I was.
Were you still okay?
I was around through most of the invasion angle.
Yeah, like and that's like I remember that, and then I don't know, I feel like I was still there for probably a couple of years. I don't remember when I fell off, and it would have been probably like 99, 2000.
Quick question: had Shawn Michaels come back yet?
I feel like he was coming, like he came back as like a referee for stuff.
Okay, so you're probably done 99, 2000.
Yeah, I feel like I was not around for his like when he was doing a whole bunch of stuff at like in the 2000s at like WrestleManias and stuff.
So I left right before he came back in SummerSlam of 2001.
Okay.
I ended around that time. SummerSlam 2001 is basically where I stopped caring about wrestling and watching it. To the point where like my mother was worried. She's like, It's through. I was like, hey mom, yeah. And she's like, what are you like? Aren't you going to watch wrestling? And I was like, no, it's fake. And my mom was like, oh, okay. Like,
yeah, we know Cam.
And it's like, okay. Like you're putting away the childish things and moving on with your life.
Yeah. Did you watch like pay-per-views and stuff when you were watching it the first time?
I couldn't afford that.
Yeah, I think we talked about that a little bit on Knotty Gamer. I was the same way. It was like I would have it on, like I would have the pay-per-view channel turned on, so it would just be blurry, and I would occasionally see something.
Mm-hmm.
We talked, I think, a little bit about how I remember like hearing when Owen Hart fell and hit the ring and died, like that. Shit. Like I remember hearing that live, but not being able to see anything that was going on, and then reading it in like recaps and stuff immediately, like published online on like blogs and stuff.
Yeah.
Like I remember those, like that's an iconic moment that I remember that I was never actually watching because I think I ever only saw like one or two pay-per-views, and it was like after I'd even like mostly been out of wrestling, but like I had some friends in high school that were still super into wrestling, and like one of them invited me over for like a WrestleMania one year, and I was like, I don't really remember like what's going on, but it was cool to get to just like see and experience that with other people. Mm-hmm. It had mostly been just a thing I would do like in the comfort of my own home. So like experiencing it and get like going over with other people and having those pops just like on somebody else's couch was fun. But yeah, it was definitely not like the norm experience.
I think your mic is
Is my mic popping in and out?
Yeah.
Well, fiddlesticks. All right. Dang it. Let me try something. Come back in. Any better?
Yeah, there we go. We're good.
There we go. Cool.
Yep. So don't worry, I got the entire gist of that. No, that's something really cool. I actually have never watched a pay-per-view with anybody else because I don't know anybody who watches wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
I do know people. I shouldn't say that. I know people who watch wrestling, but like none of them live around me.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, like even outside of that, like even though I stopped watching wrestling, I would still I'll still read recaps and stuff on IGN, and like see the big pay-per-view like storylines or Matt Fowler's like West Wrestling wrap-ups weekly. Like
Matt Fowler does a great job writing about wrestling.
Like I have stayed more or less like aware of what's going on through his recaps, even though I haven't watched it in years. Then now that I got into the top 10 videos and stuff that What Culture does regularly, and just kind of have been binging those, I definitely have a much better sense of the last 10 years of wrestling that I haven't been paying any attention to. So it's an interesting thing to come back into. I still am not like overly interested in like watching it again and getting the WWE Network and really diving in full tilt, because I've just got so many other things that I juggle.
It's okay. I made that mistake for the both of us.
Yeah, there you go.
I do have the WWE Network. What's interesting going on right now, though, is that they split the brands again.
Yeah, I've seen that, and now they're doing 2 pay-per-views a month.
Yep, but however, what they're doing is they're doing 2-hour pay-per-views. So before pay-per-views were like 3 hours long. Now they're doing 2 a month, 2 short pop pay-per-views, 2 hours a piece, and just quick like 5 or 6 matches each. That's it.
Yeah. That's like I heard Backlash was really like
Backlash was amazing.
Was great, and then I heard Night of Champions was kind of like, if this is what we're going to get in doing 2 a month, maybe let's drop it back to 1 a month.
Right. No, man, there's just something great about. So the thing is, it's not necessarily that it's the 2 a month. The problem is that SmackDown is just killing it right now.
Okay.
Like every time you think, oh, maybe SmackDown is kind of letting it like, SmackDown isn't feeling as great. All of a sudden, there's like this like amazing moment. It feels like it's capturing some energy that is just amazing. You have like John Cena getting his ass handed to him, and it's awesome. AJ Styles is currently the WWE World Champion, and what's great about it though is that he used to be Mr. TNA.
Yeah.
He's not from the WWE company. He's only been with them since January after the Royal Rumble, where he came into like the biggest pop. Like people went insane over it. Me included. I was like, this is crazy, because I'd followed him in. You asked me if I just watched WWE. I do watch WWE, but I also follow New Japan Pro Wrestling.
Okay.
Not as in depth as I follow WWE. But I do keep an eye on like who's holding the belts over there, what are the storylines going on over there, mostly because Kenny Omega is a thing. Kenny Omega is possibly the best wrestler in the world right now. Arguably the best wrestler in the world. Between his in-ring performance, the stories he tells. So Kenny Omega, I'm just going to paint this picture here for you.
Okay.
How much do you know about Kenny Omega?
None.
Awesome. Kenny Omega, think like Xavier Woods type nerd level, and then like duplicate that like by 3 or 4 times.
Okay. So because I was just thinking like if I wish there had been a Xavier Woods in wrestling back when I watched it that like I could identify with in a weird way, because I love all the stuff, and that's like I don't watch, but I will see like the videos of him and New Day like pop up, and so I get the highlight gist of all the super nerdy Super Saiyan things that they're doing, even if they're not like the nerd culture that I'm a part of, like Dragon Ball Z. Never watched, but like I get the references because I am in that ecosystem. Right. So it's like I love that he has been able to take his passion in our weird nerdy realm and elevate it to that level, and that it's gone over so well.
Well, what's awesome though is I have a New Day shirt. I bought a New Day shirt. Like I love the New Day. I love all 3 members of it for their individual reasons. Like what's really funny though is that like Big E, who's the big guy on their team, he is like, oh my gosh, I just love whenever he does anything that has to do with like the hips. He just has crazy hips. At one point they won a match and he literally laid back on the mat and just started air humping. And it's like, oh, Big E, you're crazy. You're crazy, Big E.
Yeah.
And he has like this tongue that he like lets out. It's gross. It's totally gross, but it's hilarious.
Sorry, so we got sidetracked. Kenny Omega is
Kenny Omega.
basically
Zyger was taken up to a different level. So Kenny Omega is a Canadian wrestler, actually from like the same area as Chris Jericho. Funny enough,
okay,
somebody who's now being considered one of the greatest of all time wrestlers because he is.
right. And it did Jericho like I mean that's weird. I love the storied history of wrestling. Like I love the legacy of like the Guerrero family and the Hart family and the Hart Foundation, right? And kind of like those schools of wrestling. Did Jericho come out of the same area as the
Hart family?
Harts, yeah. Okay,
he's Canadian. He's from Saskatchewan, actually.
Okay.
And
are Edge and Christian also in that kind of same vein?
No, Edge and Christian are not part of that same vein. Edge and Christian, so
different Canadians. I'm just being
different Canadians. Yeah, no. So there are people who. So basically, what you're looking for is people who got broken into the business by Stampede Wrestling, which is was the Hart family promotion that broke in all the Hart family. So they were territorial up in Canada still. And what ended up happening is they sent Bret Hart, Owen Hart, and some of their other guys down south to WWF, try out. They became the Hart Foundation. In WWF during the new era, which is the early 90s, where you have like Bret Hart coming out with his cool visor glasses.
Yeah.
So you have people who came through what's called the Hart Dungeon, which is basically they were trained by the Hart family. And then you have people who, and I'm not 100% sure, I don't think Jericho went through the Hart Dungeon. He might have, though, but where Jericho actually got his big push, like he really found his foundation, was in Japan.
Yeah.
Because Japan was doing the cruiserweight thing before anybody else was. And Jericho was... what is called the Walls of Jericho. In Japan, he called it the Lion Tamer. He had a big like lion gimmick about himself. And he actually like did rival matches with Jushin Thunder Liger, who's a epic wrestler who has a long and storied career all over the world. And he did a bunch of stuff over there in Japan, along with two other people. Or three other people: Dean Malenko, who was a like high-level technician over there, Chris Benoit, who was known as Kid Pegasus, and Eddie Guerrero. So these four guys get recruited by WCW to establish the cruiserweight division.
Right.
They come through. They feel like the cruiserweight division isn't getting enough attention. Chris Jericho is the first one to leave. He leaves. He goes to WWF. He does that amazing his first rivalry he ever has is with The Rock, of all people. Immediately, he went from being the mid-card at WCW to being top-tier level at WWF.
Y2J, baby.
Y2J. That countdown for Y2J was brilliant.
Yeah.
And then you have the other guys come in as the Radicals, even though that didn't work out. Like, they end up breaking up and going in different routes throughout WWF. But Chris Jericho, I don't believe he's through there. But anyway, so Kenny Omega's from that same kind of really rural country area of like northern Canada, northeastern Canada, I should say. And was a big into wrestling. He tried breaking into like American, like other promotions, and he just wasn't finding anything. So he made a tape and sent it over to Japan, to a Japanese promotion, where basically there's this Japanese promotion where they will just have wrestling matches anywhere. Like in the middle of a mall, in the middle of a supermarket, like they will have like an actual wrestling match there. And so he showed off, like he was willing to do moves off of like giant piles of like in a construction yard, or like he did a bunch of stuff. And it got him enough attention that they brought him over, they tried him out, and he became one of their top tier guys over there. Now, Kenny Omega comes over. He's a huge fan of, anime, video games, Japanese culture, all this other stuff. A total nerd. And when he comes over, he learns Japanese, or he already knew Japanese, and he speaks their language. And in wrestling, white, like non-Japanese national wrestlers are called gaijin. They're gaijin wrestlers. Normally, gaijin wrestlers are bad guys. You cheer for your hometown heroes, the Japanese national wrestlers. Sometimes gaijins are so popular that they get cheered anyway. But what ended up happening with Kenny Omega is because he's coming, and so most of the time gaijins just speak in English. That's it, because you don't need to pick up Japanese. And Japanese wrestling isn't as promo driven as American wrestling is, like night and day. And actually, they treat it more like a contact sport because they call it strong style, where basically they really hit you, like they actually hit you, to the point where like the king of strong style, he's actually wrestling in WWE right now, Shinsuke Nakamura. Love that guy. He's basically like if Freddie Mercury and Michael Jackson had a Japanese love child, and he pursued wrestling as his goal.
Yeah, I saw some promo like 2-night thing. What's the
NXT Takeover.
Yeah, that. Like I saw he was the one that came out in all red and had his whole shtick.
He only dresses in the red leather suit. That's all he ever wears.
Yeah, I saw like his entrance, and I was like, okay, yeah, this is maybe I don't miss wrestling because I was just like I didn't get his thing.
His thing is that he comes out as a rock and roller, which is a type of kind of like swagger that you have in Japan. He's transferred that over, but the thing is, he's so amazing in the ring. Like he just tells amazing. He's learning the language a lot better. Like he's much better now than he was when he first got here. But he tells such beautiful stories in the ring. He and Brock Lesnar were contemporaries, where Brock Lesnar worked very briefly in Japan. A dream match is to see that rematch between Brock Lesnar and Shinsuke Nakamura. Because Shinsuke Nakamura, his finisher move is where he slams his knee into the side of your head. Where you are like on your knees, and he runs over and slams his knee into your head. It's called the Bambaye. And he pins you afterwards. And it's brutal as fuck. If you just Google the match, Sami Zayn versus Shinsuke Nakamura, it's magic. It's magic in the ring. People start chanting towards the end of the match, "Fight forever," because you don't want that to end because it's so beautiful. And the reason why what's really cool, Sami Zayn's finishing move is called the haluva kick, where basically you're like standing up in the corner and he runs at you, and then at the very last moment he shoves his leg up into the air and kicks you in the face. So you have these two guys who have these, and the thing is, he practices a strong style as well. So Kenny Omega comes over and he's speaking Japanese to the audience and to people. He's being very humble. He's and eventually he gets brought into New Japan Pro Wrestling, NJPW. And during that time, there's a club. There's a stable called the Bullet Club, which is huge in independent wrestling and in NJPW. Started by Finn Balor when he was known as Prince Davitt in Japan. They started using the Click, wolf things with, and they're so good that they got like other members of the Click are just like, yeah, use it. Like, use our hand sign because you guys are that good. They have this amazing, like, Bullet Club has its own shirt design. If you Google it, it's amazing looking. Just basically, they brought like NWO type tactics, like real heel wrestling tactics from the West, into New Japan Pro Wrestling, and started winning that way. And they were the bad guys. They were the Gaijin wrestler stable that were like actual bad guys, and they never talked in Japanese. They always talked in English, and they would just like systematically tear apart the national wrestlers, and they just dominated New Japan Pro Wrestling. But whenever it came time for those clinch matches to like finally win, the heroes, the faces would overcome the odds and win. Very heroic storytelling. Anyway, at the time, AJ Styles, who's now WWE champion, was head of the Bullet Club in New Japan Pro Wrestling. And what ended up happening is, while this is happening, Kenny Omega gets signed to New Japan Pro Wrestling. And so he's being asked by the outlets, by the reporters, so are you going to join the Bullet Club? And he explains to them, he goes, I'm not a Gaijin wrestler. and he's saying this all in Japanese, of course. He goes, "I'm not a gaijin wrestler. Like, I didn't come over here as like an American wrestler. I came over here and, wrestled a Japanese style. Even though I'm like a foreigner, my style and how I wrestle and what I do is not a foreigner style. I am with the national wrestlers of New Japan Pro Wrestling." Swerve. He joins the Bullet Club.
Dick move.
Yeah, he does it, and then he says, he says in Japanese, and he's like, "This is the last thing you'll ever hear from me in Japanese." And after that, he just speaks in English. He takes up the title called The Cleaner, which is a joke where basically he comes out with he'll have a broom sometimes, but what he means by The Cleaner, he means like Leon the Professional.
Mm-hmm.
It's made very clear that he does bullet, gun things. It makes very clear that he calls himself The Cleaner, and he will play around with a broom, kind of just with the wordplay. But he's very much, he does this thing called, his finishing move is literally called the One-Winged Angel. And it is a brutal move. It is insane, and it is so cool. He had a 5-star. So 5 stars is the top level you can get for a match. He had it with an 8-year-old girl.
Okay.
Where he wrestled an 8-year-old girl. You can look at. You don't even have to be a wrestling fan, guys. I'm telling you. Google up, Kenny Omega wrestles little girl, and it is a phenomenal video of just what you can do with wrestling. Kenny Omega he can get a 5-star match out of an 8-year-old girl. So he has these amazing matches, and what ends up happening is AJ Styles loses his Intercontinental belt to Shinsuke Nakamura at Wrestle Kingdom, which is essentially the Japanese NJPW WrestleMania. And afterwards, the next wrestling event afterwards, the Bullet Club turns on AJ Styles, and Kenny Omega declares himself the new leader. He's the first foreigner to ever win a tournament like this tournament that they held in New Japan Pro Wrestling. And when it came time to plant the flag basically for New Japan Pro Wrestling, it's a ceremonial type thing. He actually tossed their flag out of the ring and took his own Bullet Club flag and put it in. So he's a total. He does the best match. Yeah, he's the ultimate bad guy right now. And he's one of the best wrestlers in the world. He does an amazing job. I just cannot stop gushing about him. He's so incredible.
So, best match of all time, or favorite or favorite wrestler if it's not Kenny Omega.
It's not Kenny Omega. Okay. As much as I love Kenny Omega, Dean Ambrose, any modern wrestler, my favorite wrestler of all time is still going to be the guy that made me fall in love with wrestling. From the moment that I thought it was a live-action Batman, and that's Sting. Sting coming down from the rafters got me into wrestling because I thought to myself, is this Batman?
And then, so what favorite matches? Do you have any favorite matches of him?
I would love to tell you that my favorite match is him and Hogan Starrcade 97, but that's a terrible match. Mostly because Hogan is
not a good wrestler.
No, he's not, but on top of that, there's a lot of problems with that match. There's a false finish that was supposed to be a fast count, but
is that the one? Is that the one that they screwed up and the ref counted normally or something?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's still rumors that Hogan told the ref to count normally. It's just it's a lot of there's a lot of dumb stuff, and it's the pinnacle of WCW at its worst. It has the greatest story ever being told in wrestling, and they ruin it at the end of it.
Yeah. The
match wasn't that great. People weren't really behind it. Sting's best matches are with either Ric Flair Clash of Champions, 84 or 85, I think. 85 or 86. Absolute classic match. They go to a 45-minute draw, and it puts Sting on the map as far as being top tier.
Mm-hmm.
Actually had more people watching it than WrestleMania that year. because it was just so incredible. Sting is just such an incredible talent.
I mean, that was one of the early WrestleManias anyway, right? Like 1 or 2 or something?
It was like 4, I think.
Okay.
WrestleMania 4? Or it might have been WrestleMania 3, the one where he slammed Andre the Giant. Hulk Hogan slammed Andre the Giant. I think
that was 3, definitely.
Yeah, it might have been that one. It's either 3 or 4. I think it was 4 because it did it trounced WrestleMania in ratings. This is, of course, before pay-per-view, and this was during closed-circuit television, which essentially became cable television later on.
Yeah.
Man, no, there's just Sting's my favorite wrestler, but my favorite match, my favorite match of all time. It's so hard because there's so many great matches.
I mean, my go-to is the Undertaker Mankind Hell in a Cell.
Fuck, that's a great match. At King of the Ring.
Yeah.
King of the Ring in 96, I think that was. 96 or 97. Where Mankind goes through the cell.
Yeah. And goes flying off and breaks on the announcer table and and you can look and see Mark Calloway in that image being like, did I just kill him? I hope I didn't just kill him.
When you look down at that, but the best part was when Mankind climbed back onto the cage.
Yeah.
And they did the choke slam spot.
Yeah.
And then they fall. And Mankind says in his book, or Mick Foley says in his book, if he hadn't have taken that choke slam incorrectly, he would have died when he went through.
Mm-hmm.
He has, there's after that he's in the corner, and you can see his tooth that's been shot up through his upper lip into his nose.
Oh God, yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's an amazing match because it's about what can the human body take?
Yeah,
so brutal. And Mark Calloway says he's told Mick, he said, when I put you when you went through the cell, I thought I became a murderer.
Yeah.
I thought I murdered you. It's just it's so crazy because Mark Calloway, The Undertaker, is one of the most badass human beings that's ever walked this planet Earth. Mm-hmm. And then on top of that, he's played one of the most iconic and badass characters on planet Earth.
Yeah.
The Undertaker is
an American badass, you might say.
Oh, for sure, American badass. that biker face. A lot of people hate the biker face. I loved it.
I'm pretty sure that was at some point during the biker phase was when I walked away from wrestling, but I definitely remember being
that would have been around the time for it. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember being around for at least a chunk of the biker phase.
Want to know how he went back to the dead man phase?
Sure.
Randy Orton, who was going by a legend killer gimmick at the time, beat Undertaker in a match and supposedly quote unquote killed him. And so he came back at the end of, I think it was Bragging Rights. A coffin showed up and then was struck by lightning, and the Undertaker burst out of it.
Wrestling is so weird.
Wrestling's the best.
How do you just because it's a point of big contention? How do you think they handled the streak and ending the streak specifically?
They shouldn't have ended it with Brock.
Yeah,
because the streak should have been the passing of a torch to a new talent. Brock Lesnar should not have beaten the streak. And now, is it possible that he beat the streak? Yes, I think it's completely possible and believable.
Yeah,
but it didn't. Brock didn't need that.
Yeah, I agree. In the storytelling in the old style, from what I've heard of rumors, they wanted to use it in that way to get over a new guy, and some of the new guys were like, "No, I'm not gonna be the one to end the streak. No, that's way too much pressure on me."
The person Mark Calloway said so Undertaker and Randy Orton had a match. I think it was WrestleMania 28.
Mm-hmm.
And Undertaker wanted to put him over.
That's what I think I've heard too.
Yeah, he said he's the new talent. He'll be your new guy. Do it. And Vince was like, okay, we'll do it. And Randy Orton said no.
Yeah.
He's like, I can't do that. I can't pray. You can't. So the thing is, it's a matter of respect. The streak became something of respect.
Mm-hmm.
And what makes it really sour, especially for somebody like me, who looks at it that way, is it's a tradition. that was always meant to be broken, but it should have been broken by the right person.
Yeah.
Brock Lesnar has notoriously, he's notoriously scoffed at tradition in wrestling. He has notoriously caused, he does not respect the culture. He does not respect the business. He uses the business to make money, and by all means, that's fair. I'm not hating on Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar is who Brock Lesnar is. Part of me loves Brock Lesnar.
I'm hating on Brock Lesnar. He's a fucking disgusting beast of a person.
Yeah, but he can kick ass. He can kick so much ass.
Yeah, but when you're doing it for real in a fake thing, that's not cool.
Oh, are you talking about when he broke open Randy Orton's head?
I mean, as the latest example, sure.
That was planned.
Yeah, it's still I think it went further than it was planned to go.
He was supposed. No, it went just as far as it's supposed to. So those elbow strikes.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why he was doing those elbow strikes in that spot is because Vince. So Brock knows how to break somebody open with an elbow strike, if he does it at just the right spot, which he did on Randy Orton. And Vince knew that, so Vince told Randy, he said, "This will be the finish. It'll be a TKO that way. That way you don't get pinned by him, but it still makes Brock look strong." So when he takes off his gloves, that's not out of frustration. That's him getting ready, and that was the signal to essentially go prone so that he could hit those spots just the right way. It only took 2 of them to really break him open.
Mm-hmm.
It's just you don't know how badly the break open's going to get.
Yeah.
And so it was planned that way, but it also meant that Brock also gave Randy a concussion when he did that. Randy Orton was supposed to have another match in 3 weeks from then, and he couldn't get cleared for it, so they had to do something else for it.
Yeah.
And it's just, yeah, he's a total, he's not a great person. He's a total asshole, but, he is the epitome of the alpha male, so of course he's going to be that.
I mean, yeah, he's absolutely what Vince loves of big, bulky wrestler. I mean, we touched on the cruiserweight stuff, which was not that's not what Vince is interested in doing. He does that's not hit. He is going back even further to him as a carny person. He is a fan of the strongman.
Mm-hmm.
He wants the guys that can wear the striped bathing suits and have the handlebar mustaches and just be as strong and powerful as they can.
Yeah.
And you have that. Yeah, you have the epitome of that in Brock Lesnar. So I get it, but it's not. It's not. It's been too one note over the years for me.
For sure. I don't find him interesting at all. I just think that he is what he is. He's an attraction.
Yeah, it's the freak show. Yeah,
it's the freak show. No, but my favorite match of all time. I'm either gonna say you can give me any of the Rock or Rock versus Stone Cold Steve Austin matches, any of them.
Mm-hmm.
They're up there. Shawn Michaels versus Steve Austin at WrestleMania 14? Yeah, 14. History standpoint, Montreal Screwjob, Survivor Series, Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart. Just that changed everything.
Yeah.
My favorite matches with Sting might be Sting versus the Giant, as he was known at the time, but the Big Show in WCW for the tag team championships because they were tag team. This is the thing. I love Sting, but a big part of my love for Sting is that he does these tag teams because he's a big man. So, and I call him the big man, bigger man tag teams. And he does great tag team wrestling, and I love it. The Giant, Paul White, Big Show, whatever you want to call him, they had a great tag team for a while. I really enjoyed it. But then Big Show goes NWO, tries to get Sting over. That was kind of Hogan's entire plan. He could get Sting by getting Big Show. Doesn't work out that way. Sting goes Wolfpack instead, which was cool with me because I love Randy Savage and Kevin Nash, and the Wolfpack was legit.
Yeah.
Granted, the character that he was playing always works best as a loner. So, although I will say, gosh, there's the Shawn Michaels Triple H match, Elimination Chamber. I mean, you could choose any of their rivalry in 2001, 2002. anywhere, any of those matches between the two of them are amazing. Triple H, Undertaker, Hell in a Cell. CM Punk, Undertaker, WrestleMania 30. Daniel Bryan, Randy Orton, Batista, WrestleMania 30. From a storyline, that might be the best one of all time. Shit, I just named a bunch of great matches, like amazing matches, but I think that last one takes the cake. Are you familiar with the Daniel Bryan story at all throughout that period?
A little bit. I've picked up, I've gleaned a lot from the What Culture stuff. I mean, he seems like another one of those that like the fans were on his side, but the WWE didn't want to like put him over, and so they kind of stretched it out, and then that was his crowning moment, right, where he finally like took the crown. That didn't like also he didn't also because that he won the beginning of the night to get into that match, and then he won.
So this is the situation. Daniel Bryan, SummerSlam, beats John Cena clean. That's already off the bat. That's a holy shit moment. Incredible match, terrific match, beats him. Up to this point, Triple H has actually been a good guy as an authority figure. He comes in when he needs to take care of business, but outside of that, he's fine. Randy Orton comes in, cashes in his Money in the Bank, but the reason he does that is because right after, so as Triple H is holding up Daniel Bryan's arm, he turns him around, gives him the pedigree, waves for Randy Orton to come down, and then Randy Orton pins him. And that begins a feud between Daniel Bryan and Randy Orton. Phenomenal feud. Gets derailed because they don't want Daniel Bryan to be the face of the company. But at this point, it doesn't matter because the fans are so behind him. It doesn't matter. The entire like approval now, the way that the crowd shows their approval for something or that they want something is literally with his chant. That's how
yes
it
chant.
is. The yes chant. They do everything they can to try to say they bring back Batista because they're going to make Batista the hero around the Royal Rumble. That doesn't go over because people want Daniel Bryan. They realize this and they put this in Damage Control. They basically say, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to punish Daniel Bryan throughout the story. We're going to make it the most grueling climb possible so that when he wins at WrestleMania, they call it the Miracle on Bourbon Street. He had to beat Triple H before that on WrestleMania, earlier on the card. He's injured during the match and after the match by Triple H. Goes into the match injured. Overcomes interference from Triple H and Stephanie McMahon. Takes out Randy Orton and then makes Batista tap out. They call it the Miracle on Bourbon Street. It's this amazing moment, this feel-good moment. The entire stadium in Louisiana, New Orleans, the entire stadium just starts chanting, yes, yes, yes. It's this amazing thing that happens. They'll make documentaries about it someday, I know for sure. But man.
And because also adding fuel to that fire, like he wasn't even in the Rumble, right, that year? So he
was in the Rumble, but he was eliminated at spot 16.
Oh, okay.
Really early in the Rumble, and people wanted to see him win because they wanted him to win. And then the following year, he's in the Rumble again, and Roman Reigns wins, and we should not even start on Roman Reigns. That's another one of Vince's pet projects that doesn't go according to plan. Yeah,
like even bringing out The Rock to support him and try and get him over doesn't work.
Nope. To the point where when they start booing The Rock, The Rock looks around like he has no idea what's going on.
What is happening right now?
The Rock is the most over man in the history of wrestling, more over than Hulk Hogan. We'll say that in about 10 years when The Rock can still come back. And he also hasn't said anything super racist.
Yeah. Well, awesome.
That's wrestling.
Great talking wrestling with you, buddy.
And that's the thing. I could still talk more, but we shouldn't.
Yeah. No, it's. I mean, we are pushing nearing 3.5 hours here, so this is going to be just as long as the Alex episode, I'm sure. But it's quite all right. I'm enjoying the conversation, and I as a reformed wrestling fan.
Don't say that. Don't say it like it's something that you're going to be reformed from.
No. As a former wrestling fan, who still is fascinated by the industry and the ups and downs it has. It's good getting to kind of just visit about it and kind of get brought up to speed on it. So thank you for the history lesson.